And let's go to the Wise Lines, the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines, and catch up with Ian Castleberry for our Major League Baseball update for this Monday, and lots to get to, courtesy of our friends at Happy Hill Restaurant. Ian, before we get into Hank Aaron, you had turned me on to an interesting story regarding Curt Schilling and Hall of Fame voting. All right. Now, Curt Schilling is kind of a polarizing figure since he's retired. He's made some very questionable statements that have certainly impacted him, maybe getting into the Hall of Fame, but it looks like that may be doubling down as well. What's the latest with Curt Schilling and Hall of Fame voters?
Well, Curt Schilling, he is in his ninth year on the ballot. He got 70% of the vote last year. So, statistically,
he's right there.
Throughout Hall of Fame voting history, the chances of Curt Schilling getting the 75% necessary to be inducted into the Hall of Fame, those chances are very good. However, Curt Schilling did come out on social media in support of the Capitol insurrection and the, claiming voter fraud, election fraud, et cetera, supporting the insurrection. And that has reportedly compelled some Hall of Fame voters, and I say some, but there have been reports that it may only be one voter, to ask the Baseball Writers Association of America and the Hall of Fame if they can change their vote, if they can take away their vote for Curt Schilling because of what he said about the Capitol riots. And the Hall of Fame, I think, is very afraid of the precedent this might set, going back and changing the vote. I don't know if it's enough voters calling for this to really enact such a change, but this is something that's happening. I don't know if it's too late in the process for the 2021 Hall of Fame class, but there are chances. With Roger Clemens, Barry Bonds, et cetera, controversial players whose Hall of Fame chances have been hurt by their association with PEDs. We're looking at the possibility of the 2021 Hall of Fame class not having any inductees, and Curt Schilling may have had the best chance. This might affect that.
Holy cow. Okay, now, are they able to do that then? Can they kind of rescind their votes, Ian, on that?
It's unprecedented. This is not something that has been done in the past. Of course, there is the character clause that has compelled or motivated some voters to withhold vote from players eligible for the Hall of Fame, especially on the first ballot. And I think, that applies to Clemens and Bonds as well. Again, the question is how many voters are asking for this, if it's actually a group of them, if it's maybe only one, if some voters are able to kind of compartmentalize and say, okay, Schilling is a seemingly deplorable human being off the field. It's cost him his job at ESPN, for example. But are you still looking at his baseball achievements and saying, okay, he is in the Hall of Fame, even if I don't agree with the man's politics?
Man, that's a developing story right there. Wow, Ian. So we may not see any inductees into Cooperstown in 2021?
It is possible. I mean, there's, again, Clemens, Bonds, Sosa, among the first-year eligibles, nobody's really jumping out. We're talking Tim Hudson, who is a very good pitcher, but is he a Hall of Famer? Mark Burley, Torrey Hunter, very good players, again, but are these Hall of Famers? And other than Clemens and Bonds, Omar Vizquel has had allegations of domestic violence that have probably really hurt his chances. Could players like Scott Rowland, Billy Wagner, Gary Sheffield, Todd Helton, can they make a jump? They might, but we're talking about making a jump from, 35% of the vote all the way up to 75%, which is pretty much unprecedented. They have plenty of years. I think those players are on their fourth and fifth years on the ballot. So they have time to make that up and build their case, as we've seen in past years with the Hall of Fame. But yeah, there's a very real possibility that we won't have any inductees in the 2021 class.
Wow. Would that be a first, Ian? I mean, I'm not putting you on the spot here.
No, this happened, gosh, I'm sorry. I want to say about 5 years ago, there was an instance where no Hall of Famers were inducted I have to, off the top of my head, I can't remember the year. I think it was, oh gosh, I'm sorry.
Don't sweat. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. But it's rare. Let's put it that way. It's rare for that to happen. How interesting on that. All right.
2013. 2013. Thank you, Google. 2013 was the last year that a Hall of Fame. Craig Biggio came close. Mike Piazza came close, but nobody got 75% of the vote that year.
How soon we forget, Ian. Yeah, right. Boy, oh boy. I'm old. I don't know what your excuse is. No. Let's get into Hank Aaron. Obviously, one of you look at all the main offensive categories, he's in the top 5 in pretty much all of them. On the baseball side, do you recognize Hank Aaron as the home run leader, or is it Barry Bonds?
Well, I at the risk of sounding like a hypocrite, I do kind of recognize Hank Aaron as the quote-unquote legitimate home run leader. However, I mean, I do, if I had a Hall of Fame ballot, I've said this before, I think, on the air, I would vote for Barry Bonds. I would vote for Roger Clemens. So if I think they're Hall of Famers, then I guess it stands to reason that I think their numbers should be counted. So Henry Aaron had no suspicion of PEDs. You can't say, that the game was rampant with steroid use, which is one of the justifications I use for saying Barry Bonds should be a Hall of Famer. They were all doing it. Who's to say who wasn't? The pitchers he was facing may have been doing it as well. But in terms of longevity, Hank Aaron, such a long career. He only hit 40 home runs 5 times, and his record of 755 home runs was the standard for 33 years until Barry Bonds broke it. But what I think is especially impressive, 23-year major league career. But Hank Aaron wasn't just a slugger. He was a really good hitter. He has the 3rd most hits in baseball history. Only Pete Rose and Ty Cobb have more hits, and I don't think that many people know that.
Wow, yeah.
Or at least it's not as celebrated as his home run totals. And if you took away his home runs, his 755, he'd still have over 3,000 hits, which would still rank among the top 30 of all time. He won batting titles. He hit 355 in 1959. He was an outstanding right fielder, winning 3 Gold Gloves, the 21-time All-Star World Series title, only 1 MVP. But it sounds crazy to say that Hank Aaron was underrated. I mean, he is one of the all-time greats in baseball, but I often feel that he's not mentioned as such. But it's nice to see. Unfortunately, it comes with his passing, but it is nice to see the attention he's been getting over the past couple of days, having conversations, family and friends who normally wouldn't pay attention to such things. But Hank Aaron's death made the news. It was on Good Morning America. It was on the evening news. So I've been having conversations about Hank Aaron with a lot of people and really kind of trying to fill them in. And, we're just talking about the baseball side of it, too. I don't know if you wanted to get in that. But, what Hank Aaron had to go through in pursuing Babe Ruth and the cultural climate he had to fight.
Let's get into that, Ian. To me, I was talking with Chris Womack earlier last hour, and to me, the fact that Hank Aaron still had faith in humanity and people in this country after what he was put through, just basically because he had different colored skin. He's an American, but, for some folks in this country, that doesn't matter to them. The racist threats, the death threats, not only against him, but against his family, were horrific. And yet he managed to go through, as stressed out as he was, not only break the record, but really, not officially, but just the way he carried himself, he really just seemed to forgive and realize that this isn't America. This is a few people in America.
It's saintly behavior. Maybe that's a word that it shouldn't be thrown around easily. But like you said, for him to have faith in humanity after the things he'd seen, the hundreds of thousands, if not more, letters that he received, the racist insults, death threats from people who didn't want to see a black man break Babe Ruth's record. I think it's one of the most indelible images in sports is when he hit 7:15 and was going around the bases. Those two guys that ran out of the stands to congratulate him. I mean, that was really cool, but you look at Hank Aaron and he's kind of terrified. Like, who are these guys? What are they going to do to me? In some ways, it takes away from that moment. I really feel bad for Hank Aaron in that moment.
Me too. I mean, I remember that so well. He didn't know what to think. Boy, that was today. Those guys probably would have been freaking gunned down. If it was today, those bozos would never have gotten out onto the field. I know they were just excited and whatnot. But, yeah, and I remember I was telling Chris in hour number one, Vince Scully, I happened to be watching the Dodgers. They were playing the Braves. And Vince Scully, after it was, as Hank Aaron's being saluted at home plate, he said, a black man is receiving a standing ovation in the Deep South for beating the record of a white man. Only Vince Scully could put it out and lay it out for all of us there. Hank Aaron, certainly, in my opinion, one of the absolute great baseball players. And it is sad, and he has to pass for us to kind of look back on, wow, this guy was even better than we gave him credit for, quite frankly. All right, let's move on to some news that's impacting baseball today. Ian Castleberry joining us on the D.C. Creasman Jewelers Wise Lines. We're talking Major League Baseball headlines presented by Mike Lawrence and his staff at Happy Hill Restaurant, Patton Avenue, across from Gross Funeral Home. So George Springer, late of the Astros, signing a free agent deal with Toronto, 6 years, $150 million. That'll buy a lot of Tim Hortons coffee up there. Ian, what does the Springer signing do for the Jays' status in the American League East?
I think it certainly puts them right up there in competing with the Yankees. I mean, Tampa Bay, they've been selling off pieces, trading Blake Snell to the San Diego Padres. They've always kind of played on the edge as far as selling off their more expensive players and finding lower priced talent. The Red Sox are in sell mode or rebuilding mode, even though they just got Adam Ottavino from the Yankees today, a rare trade between the Yankees and the Red Sox, which will help them, but I don't think that's going to make a difference in the Red Sox advancing up the AL East standings. The Orioles continue to be terrible. So Springer gives the Blue Jays that one big bat that they had been lacking, or at least that has not developed quite yet among their young players like Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Kevon Biggio, Bo Bichette. Even in a shortened season last year, George Springer hit 14 home runs, drove in 32 runs in 2019. He hit 39 home runs, almost drove in 100 runs. One of the best players in baseball, even if he doesn't get the publicity that, say, a Mike Trout might. But he was the top free agent position player available, and the Blue Jays had been in on this reportedly from the beginning. It was reportedly between the Blue Jays and the Mets for Springer, and I don't know what it came down to money-wise, but 6 years, $150 million, $25 million per season. That's a big signing for the Blue Jays. I don't know how much the exchange rate and so forth factors in, if they had to pay a little bit more because of that. But it's nice to see the Toronto Blue Jays really make a splash like this and carry not a lower market team, but not one of the big markets like New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, up into a competitive division title contention.
Do you think the Blue Jays are done with signings?
I don't think so. I mean, they signed Kirby Yates to their bullpen. That gives them a proven closer, although he struggled last year with the Padres. They re-signed Robbie Ray. They added Tyler Chatwood. I think they are still there. I don't think they're going to make a big splashy signing, but they still have a hole at the bottom of their rotation. They might go after somebody like a Jake Odorizzi, a James Paxton. But from what I understand, if Trevor Bauer, who is the top free agent pitcher available, if he's still out there as we get closer to spring training and no team has signed him, the Blue Jays might decide, hey, WTF, why not go for it? Let's get the top guy in here, an unquestioned ace, and really just kind of go all in for 2021 and maybe for the next 2 to 3 seasons. And I would not rule the Blue Jays out for Trevor Bauer.
Man, I'd love to see Toronto make a run in the AL East for sure, and that is such a solid division. And I'd like to see the Red Sox get back at it as well. Ian Castleberry covers baseball for the Wise Guys and our NFL Gold Nuggets. Ian also covered the Dodgers there for SI.com during this past limited baseball season. Also, of course, writes for awfulannouncing.com and, of course, thecomeback.com. And remember to like both on Facebook. Ian, you got any baseball assignments coming up as we're just a few weeks away from spring training?
No, just ramping up, and no surprise assignments. That Dodgers thing kind of came out of nowhere, so I guess I'll just kind of sit back and see. But I do plan to write a little bit more baseball for the comeback this season after doing that Dodgers assignment. It kind of reminded me of how much I enjoyed, covering the day-to-day of the sport and doing more than, I love doing the updates here on Wise Sports Radio, but getting to write about it as well is a lot of fun.
Sure, and it's what you do so well. On top of that, Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys. Ian, real quick, we got about 45 seconds. Any other free agent signings of note?
No big ones over the past week, but the Yankees did make a notable deal getting Jameson Italian from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Italian hasn't pitched since 2019, having various elbow surgeries, but it appears he's changed his mechanics. He's throwing 95 miles per hour, he says. So that's another low-cost, higher risk, but possible high-reward signing that the Yankees have made, along with Corey Kluber. So now you have Garrett Cole, Corey Kluber, Jameson Talon, Jordan Montgomery. Will they bring in Masahiro Tanaka? I think, we just talked about the Blue Jays. If the Yankees are going to stay ahead of the Blue Jays, I think it will be because of their pitching, and getting Jameson Talon, I think, is important in that regard.
Can't wait to get it up and running. And as we get closer, we'll see if Major League Baseball looks like they're heading towards what they'll consider be a normal schedule, kind of like what they did last year. Not many fans, if any fans at all, allowed in the stadium. So we got lots to follow as spring training is, just about 3 weeks away, at least pitchers and catchers reporting. Ian, you're the best, man. Always appreciate you.
Thanks, Pat.
You got it, buddy. Thank you. It's Ian Castleberry with the Wise Guys. And, of course, Ian's appearance is presented by our friends at the Happy Hill Restaurant.